Welcome to the show. Of course, I do value your support. It wouldn't happen if I was just talking to myself. And the headline topic today is how to be an influencer. And I suppose I really should have put a question in front of that one, which is, do you want to be an influencer? Because I fell into the trap of presupposing that everybody did. But I think it was a fairly safe bet because we are social animals. Um, I've just got another little message. I better check on this before I go any further. Yeah, we're all good. We evolved as social animals, which means that we need to have a tribe around us. And some anthropologist or social engineer or something suggested that our ideal tribe is round about 140 people. And in this 140 people, the chances are you're going to have people who are good at building things, you're going to have people who are good at growing things that you can eat, and you're going to have people who are good at hunting and fishing. And there are people who will be good at making blankets and clothes and stuff like that. So all of your basic needs should be available from the tribe if you can persuade them to help you. So unless you're going to live as a hermit, you definitely do need to know how to be an influencer. And I guess that's why people have signed up for the show. So I'm going to give you a few ideas. Some of them are as a result of the research that I've done on this subject and the training that I've done on this subject. And then at the end, if I can remember, I'm going to give you my slightly unusual ideas about why influence is important to us. And in my opinion, they're the most important, but I stress to add that is only my opinion. But first of all, I've got a couple of questions that have been fired in just before the show and one comment. The comment is from Andy, who I have known for a number of years now, and he is a mad keen golfer. And he was telling me, first of all, that he loves the shows and he greatly appreciates that they're free. Well, as part of influence, I might come back to that question. But if I don't, Andy, I'll just say, look, I do these shows primarily because I enjoy doing them and I always learn something from them. So in a way, they're not free. I'm getting something for it. Anyway, Andy goes on to say that he's a keen golfer, that his golf has been up and down all year. But in the middle, he said he won his club championship. Well, I'm not feeling too sorry for you, Andy. I've never won a club championship, and there'll be lots of other people who haven't either. So celebrate that success. And Andy also rounded off, I think it was on the show on Money, when I said if you keep putting yourself in the game, sooner or later, you're going to hit form at the right time and you're going to win something. That's what TV producers do. They put shows on, and even if they have bad ratings at the start, as long as they keep the series running, sooner or later, enough people, for some reason or another, will start watching the show. The other question that I've had is body posture and stuff like this important in being an influencer? Well, the answer is that it definitely is. It's often not addressed, funnily enough, in some of the books that have been written about persuasion and influence, but it certainly is important. And again, trusting my memory, I'll definitely come on to that. And another question I've had, and it's from a lady, obviously a mother, because she says, as a parent, how can I develop the skill of influencing without hectoring? Yeah, those of us who are parents can understand where that question comes from, because it is very easy to fall into the hectoring mode. And perhaps we underestimate the difficulties here of being a parent, because if you can influence a teenager, a teenage son or daughter, then you have highly developed influencing skills. So don't be too downhearted if you feel that you're fighting a losing battle, because I've been there too. But there are ways to get your own back on these unruly brats. So into the nitty-gritty of influence. Anybody who's in this business will be familiar with Cialdini's book called Persuasion and Influence. It's certainly by far the best book that I've ever read on the subject. And I'm drawing on his content for the first part of this show when he talks about the 6 pillars of influence. And to me, these are the technical skills that you require. And for any type of influence type situation you're in, unconsciously or consciously, it's a good idea to run through all of those 6 pillars. Cialdini doesn't mention, unless my memory is letting me down, he doesn't talk so much about what we can do in our presentation styles and techniques to influence people, because as I mentioned earlier, those certainly are important. Anyway, a quick run through on his pillars of influence. The first one is commitment and consistency. All of these things are very much related to psychology and to our thoughts and to actually our emotions. They appeal to our emotions, and particularly the base reptilian type emotions. And this is why people who use influence and who are extremely good at it, and I'm thinking here particularly of the cream of the advertising industry, they know so much about our reptilian emotions and how they can be manipulated. And that's why they get paid a lot of money. And if you look at any advertisements for big brand names and stuff, you'll see that they're using all of these techniques. Anyway, commitment and consistency. What does this mean? It means that once we've made this thought that we are going to help this person or this organization in one way or the other, it then becomes very much easier for that person or organization to come back to us asking for other stuff. It just seems to work like that. And this person would not have given that initial commitment unless they felt that this person or the organization were good, for want of a better word, that were about things that this person could agree with. Now, if they later find out that in some ways this organization or person is lacking in some way, then oddly enough, the chances are that they will still be prepared to offer further commitment. Because if they don't, in their mind, it's reminding them that they've made a mistake the first time round. And people don't like fessing up to that kind of stuff. There's a bit of denial that often goes on. And particularly if a person is stubborn, they are unwilling to change their decisions because of an earlier commitment. And the advertisers know this. What about consistency? Well, it's really, to be quite honest, it's much the same as the commitment that I mentioned. The other thing that I perhaps might say about commitment is that often you're asked for a small commitment up front. A charitable organization, for example, might say, will you commit to $1 a month? And a lot of people would agree to something like that. I mean, we're back to the money subject now, really, but we all have a concept of what is a small amount of money for us, what's a medium amount, and what's a big amount. Now, obviously, big ticket items we won't give it too much thought at all. And if we're feeling good that day, we may well sign a little box and agree to it. The next pillar of influence is liking. I mentioned earlier that we're social animals, so we have to like that organization. We have to like that person. And it's a whole show on its own about what makes us like a particular thing. So I'll just leave that one to your imagination. I'm sure you know the things that you like and the things that you don't like. The third one is a really important one, and this fascinates me from the psychological point of view. And it's reciprocation, sometimes called the law of reciprocity. And it works something like this. Say that I agree to meet you for a coffee. Perhaps we're going to, talk about a new program I've got or something that I'm interested in learning about you. So we meet for a coffee. And the first thing that I would say is, hypothetically, is what would you like? Now, there's so many different types of coffee now, the answer might be a long one. But I'd say, what would you like to drink? And then I will go up and order them, and I will pay for them. And I'll bring the coffees back, or the waiter, if we're in a place like that, smart posh place like that, the waiter or waitress will bring us our coffee, and I'll say, this one's on me. Or if the person might say, how much do I owe you? And I say, no, this one's on me. And they'll usually say, oh, thank you. And we'll carry on with our conversation. And you'd think that would be the end of it. But next time, let's say with the same person, we meet for something a bit more than a coffee. Maybe we have a sandwich, a burger, or even a proper meal. Well, this person, the good chance is, unless this person really is a freeloader, and most people aren't because we're social animals, chances are that this person will offer to pay for the meal. So that cup of coffee that you made an investment in, it's terrible to think like this, and we don't think about this logically, fortunately, like most of us. But this investment we made in buying somebody else a cup of coffee has turned into a free meal, which is good. And that is what greases the wheels, as people say. The other one is scarcity. Now, we've all seen these adverts, haven't we? This sale must end tomorrow at 12 noon, and our price is unrepeatable. That's a sales technique, and it seems to work because there are some companies that are advertising their products all the time, and they must have a sale every day that always ends at noon the next day. And scarcity can also be, I suppose, exclusivity. Like, you're buying something that either nobody else can afford, so it's very expensive, or just a rare thing anyway. Like, nobody else is going to have one of these. May not be expensive, but it's the only one of its kind. Things that are usually the only one of its kind actually are expensive. And that definitely seems to work as well. And I know people, all of us have difficulty in pricing our products, pricing how much, our services, those of us who are in the service industry. Generally, I mean, we do have to, we're not running charities, we do have to charge people. It's very, very hard for most of us to put a price on what we offer people. And I know some people who deliberately charge very high if it's a job they don't want to do or a client they don't want to work with. And funnily enough, sometimes those programs or products sell better than the medium or lower priced ones, which just goes to show that, by the way, is not something that I do. Everybody pays the same if they work with me. What's the other one? Social proof. Social proof. We do things, we're a member of a tribe. If the tribe do something, then we're likely to follow suit. And we see this on Facebook and all these other social media sites. And we see it in how stars are used, and film stars, Hollywood stars or sports stars are used and paid to endorse certain products. Because if they're wearing those sunglasses or those shoes or that watch, then you too, some of this fame can rub off you because you can buy the same thing. And that definitely works. And the final one is of Cialdini's sphere of pillars of influence is authority. We do respond to authority figures. We are social animals. I keep saying that, don't I? But in the tribe, there will be a pecking order. And just like in the army or companies, usually there is little doubt about who is in charge. So there will be one person in charge, probably, or there may be a committee of several people that are running our village for us. And we will fit somewhere in this hierarchy. And it will probably depend to a large extent about A, how popular we might be, but perhaps more importantly, what can we actually do? What are our skills that we can trade, that we can barter, that we can use to persuade people to give us or do the stuff that we can't do? So that's Cialdini. And if if you're in this business, then of sales or marketing or influencing others, then it's a book well worth investing in. And it's been out quite a long time now, but it's still a bestseller, and rightfully so. So, what about the other areas of influence? Well, I'm now thinking in terms of politicians. There are plenty of other people who use these skills, but the great influencers. Um, well, before I go there, uh, I've been giving a couple of talks this week, and one of them is actually for a charity that I support. And I was talking to a group of people who are over 50 and don't have a job. And some of them have been unemployed for quite a while. So, they've lost confidence, and their skills perhaps need refreshing. And there are many psychological and emotional issues that go with not having a job. Back to the tribe stuff, I suppose. And so in this talk, one particular lady, we were talking about how to prepare for an interview, and this particular lady gave me a wonderful summary in about 2 minutes of everything that it was important to remember in an interview situation. And I, congratulated her on being so concise, but without trying to put her down in any way. But I said, whilst all of this is true, the chances are you won't be able to think of this in the interview, because you're going to be under some kind of stress, like, well, most people are, even if they're used to handling stressful situations. But even if you can remember it, and even if you do all of these things, it's going to appear very mechanical and contrived, because you can only really influence people effectively when you're in flow, when you are and because peak performance, as we will say many times in these shows, peak performance comes from being in flow, from trusting your unconscious mind, being in the moment, and not reading a script, either literally or metaphorically. So that is why when you see politicians talking without any script, preferably even without any order cue, they will sooner or later find their voice if they're really good at this kind of stuff. And the other thing that I've thought about with these people who are long-term unemployed was, we were talking about how to make an impression. And I said, look, just remind yourselves, folks, that the chances are that the person is going to make a decision about whether to give you the job or not within the first few minutes of the interview. And indeed, in some cases, although this isn't fair, that person will have made their mind up more or less as soon as you walked in through the door. And the reason why people take these shortcuts is because most communication is nonverbal. I'm sure I've mentioned this in a previous program, but as human beings, we developed our voice boxes rather late in our evolution. So before we could actually articulate, complex words and string them all together, we were managing to communicate, and we were doing that on a nonverbal level. And we are still pretty much the cavemen and women on the inside. And as actors, you're even taught how to walk. You've been walking all of your life, most of the time fairly successfully, but you're taught how to walk in a confident way. The importance of eye contact is really important. Not too much and not too little, definitely not too little. And also making sure that if you're being interviewed by more than one person, you're making contact with everybody in the room. So we were talking about posture and confidence, and and non-verbal communication. So yeah, somebody else who is really good at this, by the way, love him or loathe him, is President Trump. Can you believe it? I almost forgot what his name was, President Trump. And watch his hands. Great communicators use their hands. They allow their hands to do the talking. And there are ways to be trained in this. And there are various techniques. And one of them is, and people who are really good at it will use a different hand for different messages they're trying to get across. And it's almost as if they have like a post-it board in front of them, and they're posting little messages. And unconsciously, we start to understand what this particular message might be. And again, it's a way of building influence. Right. I think, oh yes, I said I was going to wrap up. Yeah, we've just got 5 minutes to go, and I'm hoping we keep the signal. So this is just my final comment, really, unless anybody's got any particular questions. My unusual take on this, on influence, is that by the kind of things that I've talked about today, we have learned a little bit about how other people influence us, so we can be more aware of when we are being deliberately influenced by another person. And we've also learned a little about how we can more readily influence others to do what we want them to do. And why do people want that? Well, one of the things is they want control. They want to have control over their environment. They want to have control over other people so that they do what they want them to do. But to me, the most valuable part of influence is you can learn how to influence yourself. And I suppose this is another form of control. But you can, for instance, if you say you want to get fit, signing up to a gym is one way to do it. But the novelty and the fun of working out every day usually lasts less than a month. So you have to find an influencing technique that will keep you going through the times when you really want to give up, so that you can carry on a bit longer, and then you've built a habit that may well last you for the rest of the life. Well, that's what you can get from a consideration of some of these things that I've mentioned with. I mean, commitment, for example. If you signed up with a friend and you put a bet, the first one to quit was going to give $100 to a charity or something like that, that will build the commitment and the consistency. So we don't have any other questions. So I will sign off. I don't know what the show next week will be about. I think I should be back in London by then, but we'll think of something and it'll be posted before the show as usual. So in the meantime, have a really influential week and get everybody giving just everything that you ever wanted and ever dreamed of. And if and when that happens, please let me know so that I can mention it on the next show. But anyway, that's for the future. What's happening now is it's the end of the show, and I'm going to have a lovely walk into town and find somewhere nice to go, a meal. Okay, hope you have a great evening too. Goodbye for now.